Okay, let me go.
Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to
Okay.
today's class. So this will be our second class for this October 2023 night. So it's me in class. I have Shidima. This will be our second class. Then I also have Ernest. So I guess this is Ernest's first class with us. So and I expect others to join us as we progress in the class. Okay, so Ernest, good morning once again. So I learned you joined us from Port Harcourt. That's fine. So Shidima, were you the one that joined from Lagos or Abuja?
Yes, Lagos.
Maryland, right?
Yes, Maryland.
Okay, so Shidima, since you were in class with us last week, so I would like to ask you some of the takeaways, key takeaways, you learned from class.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity. Let me just my own key takeaways. Because we're talking about taxation, so the first thing is we discuss about tax and taxation. So excuse me, give me like 2 seconds, please. Come in. Please.
Okay, so last week we, that was our first class. Then going by the study test, going by your syllabus. So the first topic to treat is introduction to taxation. Obviously, students at this level.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Chima.
I told you I'm not mother, so I have to go drop my baby. So last week we discussed about tax and taxation. What are the difference between tax and taxation? So I, from my own little understanding, tax is a money which is imposed by the government to the people, that citizen, either individuals or companies, which they must pay. So it is not voluntary, you must pay it. And the government uses the money for our social amenities, and which are the roads. And so taxation is about the act, that's levying, or the way they contribute.
The process.
Process. Thank you. The process of tax. That's the process of
Enforcement.
levying and collection of money. So what are the sorry, my brain is everywhere. What are the objectives of tax? What are the reasons for taxation? Because they must have reason why the government collect money from us. So the one of the important one is generates revenue. So number two is also provide public goods, which are the road, for examples, the road, the flyover, also merit goods. That's the hospitals, health, education. So also discourage consumption of the merit goods too. That's some goods that are not good for our body. So like you explained, like you give an example of cigarettes. Like if governments add more money on importation of cigarettes, people that smoke it might not want to because it's going to be expensive. So what to that one again? And also economic stability too. That's that one. So one more. Basic concepts in taxation. I said something about tax cuts. That's where the government reduces or decreases money from the people that pay taxes. They don't collect much. They reduce the money. So that's tax cuts. Also, we spoke about tax incidents. Spoke about tax rates. We spoke about tax shifts, or you call it tax swap. Also, again, tax burden. So that and that. Also, what again? And the difference between and tax and levy, other things. So tax is compulsory. It's not voluntary. You must pay it, and it's structured for tax. So while levy it's not compulsory, and it's like the examples of levy are those ones they pay in the bus park, so on and so forth. So which other one again? Which one again, sir?
Okay, so we also discussed
So
the history of
taxation.
taxation.
Yes, peaceful taxation. That's equity, where we have the horizontal and the vertical. If I'm correct, the vertical is that's where you pay more, and depending on what you're buying. If I'm correct, my own time, my own words.
The more
Where the
income
horizontal
you
is
earn, the more
the
income
more
you earn, the
income you
more
earn,
tax you
yes,
pay.
the more income you earn, the more money, the more tax you pay. But for vertical, right?
No,
Vertical is
horizontal.
everybody horizontal. Thank you.
And
Everybody
just
pays
explain vertical. So it's horizontal.
everybody pays the same thing. Like the one for now it was a 5%, so I pay 7.5
Value tax.
VAT. Thank you so much. There's also sanctity. That's who to pay, where to pay, how to pay. So that's what why tax is structured. There's also convenience. Like you gave an example of the farmers. The farmers that when they pay their tax, they pay during harvest or when they're about to plant or when they're about to farm. So convenience. Also, you spoke about simplicity, like the way we is it IRS now or FIRS? So everything is computerized now. Everything is easy. You can pay anywhere. You don't have to go to the office to stand and pay or whatever. You can do it anywhere you want to. So simplicity. So which one again, sir?
Your
So
explanation now suits convenience. Okay, convenience.
convenience. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So then we spoke about history of taxation too.
That one.
So the history of taxation could be traced back to the colonial era. Okay.
Era, yes,
So
he spoke about that. Where they it
1914.
was a
So it
war.
started from the northern part of the yeah,
Yes,
continue.
yes. The northern there's something you called it one
Yes,
name,
zakat. Zakat.
zakat. Thank you. So that was when they started paying that one too. Then also the Yorubas too started paying their own too. That's OC. Is it OC? So if
Yes,
I'm correct.
that's one.
Also too, you spoke about tax also in the Bible too, where they say give Caesar to what belongs to Caesar and what belongs to God too. That's also part of tax too. I also spoke about which one again? Ahem, I don't know.
The
I don't
eastern
know
part of the
who, who,
country.
who introduced
What happened in
tax.
Abga?
Who introduced tax to in Nigeria? I think this is Lord Lugard.
Yes.
Yes. So um, sorry, my head is everywhere. So I'm just speaking from how you
You
taught
you
us.
really you really you really tried. Yes.
So
So I mean,
and also the eastern parts too in Aba too. Yes, true. I think you spoke about how the tax came about. It came about back then, like when the community, people that secure the place for them, so they have to give them something. So instead of giving them, so everybody has to contribute something one, and give to them. So that's how the tax came about, if I'm sure. So I think what's more again?
so because of time, so you you've tried.
Thank you.
So brilliant.
And the reasons why we pay tax if I'm there. So I think I've said
Okay.
that one before, right? So
Yes, you mentioned some of. Okay.
mm,
So
thank
that's
you.
that's
Thank you so much.
so
That's been my
Ernest.
point for you now.
So I hope you've also picked some points from uh key key takeaways.
Yes, I really picked a lot from her. It was very refreshing and as well it helped me to know the things I do not know about taxation, history of taxation. So I really had a lot from what she has said.
That's so meaning by this time next week, you also be telling us some of the facts.
By God's
So
grace.
get ready. So Shidima, can you please confirm if the admin has uploaded video on YouTube?
Yes, they've uploaded on YouTube. Yes, I went through it again. The first one, but I don't know, but I know we went off from that 7 to 9. So I was on the first one. I was going through the first one on YouTube. They've uploaded it on YouTube. The first class rather.
Okay, so that's
So I'll
that's
confirm the second one later.
okay. So that's good. So I haven't known, having
Sorry,
discussed.
can I ask a question, please?
Okay,
What is the name on the YouTube? Is it online class tutors?
ICAN online
Okay.
tutors. ICAN
Okay.
online tutors.
so when you search for the name, it will pop up a lot of videos, ICAN videos, our pre-recorded ACC and the likes. So it means that you need to know the course you are searching for, and as well as the topic you are looking for. Okay. So haven't known or discussed the basic or the introduction to taxation. So it's also important to know the legal framework. So some of these were discussed in our last class, okay, but it wasn't part of the table of contents. But your chapter 2 of your syllabus or your study test, okay, basically is on the legislative framework. So I call it legal framework. Okay, so because the word legal, an average student, okay, we ordinarily know that you are talking about laws, right? Okay, so laws. So the legislative framework has to do with the enactment, the act of the National Assembly, okay? Legislative of framework, okay? So because every law in Nigeria, okay, every act in Nigeria, so acts, so I'm not talking about acts as in action, okay? So every act in Nigeria, you know, must pass through the what? Through the legislative, because they owns the law. Am I correct? They owns what? They owns the law. So, and what are the legislative arms of the government? We have the National Assembly at the federal level. We have the National Assembly. Sorry. We have the National Assembly, and we have the House of Assembly. So this is at the federal level. Okay. So the federal government, and this is at the state government level. Okay. So now, for tax purpose, okay, for tax purpose, the National Assembly has what? Has the 100% right, okay, has what? Has the 100% right. In fact, they own the what? They own the law to enact any act, be it tax act, just mention, okay, so environmental act, among others, okay, among others. So now, in this topic, we'll be looking at the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Then also, we discuss the Raised Man Physical Commission framework, the sources of tax laws, the enabling acts, that is, the acts that make some of the taxes we pay, such as the income tax, any form of indirect tax. Okay, so that makes it what? That makes it legal, that impose it on all citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and in some cases, non-resident individual. I mean, those that are not citizen. Okay, so Then also we look at the national tax policy that came about, in sometimes around 2017, during the first tenure of the Buhari administration. So at the end, we summarize whatsoever we have discussed in the class. Then my work example shall be your assignment. Okay, so assignment. So probably there are also some of the things we have discussed in class. So it's just to prepare you guys ahead of your exams. Okay, so prepare you ahead of the October 2023 diet examination. So if you are consistent in my class, okay, you're always in the class, this live class, then also go back to the YouTube, or probably maybe later in the diet, we may create, because for our ICAN group, we do have a Google Drive. Okay, so we have a platform. So they download our application. So in that application, you can always navigate to the course you want, previous video lectures and the likes. If you want video lectures for the previous 3 diets, you can get that there. Okay, you can get them there. So that's for the ICAN, but for CI10 for now, so it will always be uploaded on the YouTube. So after listening to the live class, because the live class, the advantage of this live class is that you'll be able to have a direct conversation with your lecturer, okay, unlike you just listening to the pre-recorded video. So you won't have that advantage of asking questions, okay? So after this class, you go back to the YouTube, get a video, listen to the video again, then pick up your study test. So I can also advise you to, pick up the principles of taxation for ICAN. Okay, so if you can read it together with your CI10 pack, that's fine. Okay, so principle of taxation for ICAN, then also taxation. Okay, so taxation for the ATS3 level. Okay, taxation for the ATS3 level. So that's fine. So by the end of the diet, before your exam, I know you'll be happy. You will be so much willing to write the exam even before the examination date. So at the end of this class, you should understand the provisions of the Constitution as far as tax is concerned, then identify the various sources of tax laws, right from the English law, okay? So case law, customary law, okay? Customary law, among others. Then also understand the effects of the enabling acts, and then identify the policy guidelines of national tax policy of 2017 and understand the responsibilities on the stakeholders. So if I may ask you, who are the stakeholders in taxation? As far as taxation is concerned, who are the key stakeholders? Who are the key stakeholders? Ernest, you want to try?
Let me try. The taxpayer, the government, and the tax authority. That's the person through the body through which the tax is paid.
Okay, so Shidema, you want to try? Hello? Shidema, are you there? Okay, she's busy. Okay, so
I think, I'm sorry, I'm here.
okay,
I think I'll go with NS, the people that pay the taxpayers. Also, person that make tax law from, I don't know what they call them, John.
okay, so the key stakeholders in taxation include one, the government. Okay, so it's the government that introduced taxation to us. So if government today says that we should all stop paying tax, Wow, that's good. But will the government be able to sustain that? So then followed by the taxpayers, we have the tax authorities. Okay. Then we have the tax consultants. Okay. Tax consultants. Then don't forget, in this world, media is also important, isn't it? So media is also one of the key stakeholders. So now let's start. Legal framework of taxation. So as mentioned earlier, this is the basis of which taxation is levied on the citizens of the country. So the legal framework of taxation is a codified system of order that describes the legal implications of taxation, that describes the legal implications of taxation. So the tax laws, are not just for the taxpayer to pay or to apply. It's also, give the power to the tax authority to go after any taxpayer that defaults in the tax payment, or that fails to comply, fails to comply with the tax law. Meaning there are sanctions and what? There are penalties for, whoever disobeys tax law. So the tax system in Nigeria is also a tripartite foundation. What do I mean by tripartite foundation? That is, we have three words. When we are talking about the system of taxation, it's in three categories. It is in what? It is in three categories. So we have the tax policy, we have the tax policy, we have the tax legislation, and we have the tax administration. We have the what? We have the tax policy, tax legislation, tax administration. Also, you should not forget that in Nigeria, tax is decentralized, isn't it? It is what it is decentralized according to the tax government. So, because when tax was first introduced, then during the colonial era, in preparation for our independence, so tax was introduced and established by the Raisman Commission to examine the jurisdiction and powers of the various tiers of government in Nigeria. So it was tested at the federal government level, at state level, then at the local government level. Okay, so those are the three tiers of government we have in Nigeria. So for the federal government, they are represented by the FIRS. Then for the state government, they are represented by State Internal Revenue Service. Then for the local government, they are represented by the local government revenue committee. Okay, so these tiers of government are independently responsible for the administration of taxes within their jurisdiction, within their jurisdiction. Are we together? Hello, is it clear? Hello, hope you guys are following.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. So let's look at the Raisman Fiscal Commission. Like I said earlier, prior to our independence, taxes are being collected based on the regional, parts of the country. So we have the northern parts. We have the east and then we have the south. Sorry, the western part of the country. So just three. So to the northern people, tax is not new to them because Uthman Dan Fodo, who brought Islam to the north, and part of the principle of Islam is that the Muslims should pay what we refer to as zakat. Okay, so being taxed on what? On their properties and what? And money. Okay, but the basis of which they pay the tax is you measure your money. Okay, so if, like, for instance, you have 2.5 million naira today and you were able to save this money till another 1 year, okay, so meaning it does not reduce, it does not decrease from that 2.5 million, so instead it was increasing in value. Okay, so then you pay 2.5 million naira, and sorry, 2.5% of that money, of that savings that you have. Then the same thing goes for properties, but it depends on the property. Okay, so if the properties are for rental purpose, then it's what you will charge will be what? 2.5% of the income you earn from that property. Okay, so then in the western part and the eastern part of the country, wow, it was not an easy thing. Okay, so there were riots in the western part, Abeokuta precisely. Then when you go to the eastern part of the country, Aba, Calabar, and the likes. So, but towards the independence, the colonial authorities established what we refer to as Race Man Commission in year 1958. This is to examine the jurisdiction and powers of the various tiers of government in Nigeria at independence. Okay, at what? At independence. So 5 legislations were enacted based on the recommendations of the commission, and these are as follows. We have the Petroleum Profits Act of 1959, the Stamp Duties Act of 1990. Okay, so then also we have the Companies Income Tax Act of 1979 and the Income Tax Management Act of 1961, as well as the Personal Income Tax Act of 1961. So I know you may want to ask me, apart from the Petroleum Profits Tax Act that has 1959 year, why are we having 1990, 1979, 61, and 61 year? When we say that the colonial master introduced these tax acts or these tax, proud independence. Okay, so why are we having all of these after post the colonial era? So the reason for this is because these stars have been, existing for long. Okay, but at the time when they, gained the act of the National Assembly. Okay, so that's why we have this here. Okay, so proud to this, we have different income. We have different income acts. Okay, so sorry. So starting from the company's income tax ordinance of 1939. We also have the native direct taxation ordinance of 1923. So those ones, they are what? They are ordinance. And who give ordinance? Who give ordinance? So ordinance are for the military are for the military. Okay, ordinance is for the military. So those ones that are enacted during the military regime, were not here. So act is for what? Is for the democratic system of government. Okay, so that's why we have act. So any other one prior to any other one during the military regime are referred to as what? As ordinance. Are referred to as ordinance. Are we together? Okay. So we also have the Nigerian Income Tax Ordinance of 1943. Nigerian Income Tax Ordinance of 1943. So the petroleum profit tax came into effect from 1st January 1958. So it deals with the taxation of petroleum producing companies in Nigeria. And this is a federal law enacted and implemented by the federal government. Enacted and implemented by the federal government. Then for Stamp Duty Act. Stamp Duties Act, was enacted and came into effect in 1959. So that was when it was first enacted and came into effect 1959. So it deals with the assessment and collection of duties on instruments, collection of duties on what? On instruments. And what are the instruments? These include one, or let me put it basically documents, okay? Documents on specific transaction. For instance, rent. So your rent agreement is an instrument of stamp duty, okay? Your contract agreement, okay? Your bill of contract, your promissory notes, deed of contract, deed of assignment, among others. Are we together? So the Stamp Duty Act is a federal law and its operation is on the concurrent legislative list. So it means that it is operated by both the federal government and who? And the state government. And the what? And the state government. Are we together? By both the federal government and the state government. Okay, so that's for stamp duty. Then for Companies Income Act, Company Income Tax Act, this is also a federal government law, okay, and it's only federal government, unlike stamp duty. So that is, and I also mentioned earlier that it is administered by who? On behalf of the federal government by the FIRS, So it deals with the taxation of all limited liability companies and unlimited liability companies in Nigeria, except for those that are operating within the upstream sector of the petroleum industry. Again, don't forget that this Petroleum Profit Tax Act only deals with companies operating in the upstream sector of the petroleum industry, upstream sector of the petroleum industry. Are we together? Okay, so then which other one? Then we have the Income Tax Management Act. So it's regulates the Personal Income Tax Act in Nigeria. So it was first Income Tax Management Act, then later repealed to become the Personal Income Tax Act. It started from Lagos when Lagos was the federal capital territory of Nigeria. Okay, when Lagos was what? When Lagos was the federal capital territory of Nigeria. So this Personal Income Tax Act, the Personal Income Tax Lagos Act of 1961 is now the Personal Income Tax Act 2004. Are we together? So that's that. So all of these, laws or acts of taxation have been subjected to series of amendments and new laws enacted. So the new laws enacted are the Capital Gains Tax Act, okay, the Value Added Tax Act, the Tertiary Education Tax, the Nigerian Information Technology, Development Agency Act, then the Federal Inland Revenue Establishments Act. So all of these I've just mentioned were not part, of those acts, or were not considered in the Raisman Fiscal Commission. And these set of acts, they were considered in the Raisman Fiscal Commission. I've also gone through series of amendments, okay? And now we could have the Stamp Duty Act to be of 2004, and as amended, recently we have been having the Finance Act starting from 2019. We've also seen that of 2020, we have that of 2021, and recently that of 2022 was signed by the past administration, led by the President Muhammadu Buhari, which is signed on May 28th, having a retrospective application of first, some of the provisions of the Finance Act had a retrospective application of 1st of May 2023. However, for instance, we have the value added tax, and also we have the tertiary education tax, okay, that was increased from 2.5% to 3%. And thank God the FRS has, came out. They have published a public notice notifying the public that the Finance Act of 2022, okay, so we have effects on accounting period. We have in effect on accounting period ending on or after 31st of July 2023. So meaning taxpayers with, accounting period ending on 31st December 2022 or 30th June 2023 will not be affected. Am I speaking sense? Hello, are you guys with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, you can also confirm. So you can also confirm this from the public notice. So just go to your Google, type public notice recently issued by FIRS. Okay, so I want to believe that my memory has served me right by saying it has an effective date of 31st July 2023, meaning for companies or taxpayer having their accounting year ending on or after 31st July 2023. Okay, so then we also have the Companies Income Tax Act, which has also gone through various amendments by the Finance Act. Then also we have the Value Added Tax Act as amended. We have the Tertiary Education Tax Act. So the Education Tax Act was first in 2004. It was subsequently amended. Then in 2011, we have the Tertiary Education Tax Fund, okay, which has also been amended through the Finance Act. Then we have the FIRS Establishment Act that has also been amended. We have the Nigerian Information Technology Development. Others include this should be J. So others include, we have We have the what was it called? Sorry, we have the police trust fund act, among others. Okay, so all these taxes are used in modern times to generate what? To generate revenue. Okay, in addition, they are applied to fund governance, generate employment, ensure resource redistribution, streamline consumption of certain goods. You know, a good example of this is what? Customs and what? And excise duties. Customs and excise duties. So remember what excise duties is all about? Okay, I didn't take that in your class. That's for the indirect tax students. Okay, so also tax help to reduce inflation and stimulate growth in the economy. So therefore, tax is a significant tool for fiscal and economic policy. Tax is what? Is a significant tool for fiscal and economic policy. So no government can, stand firm without revenue generation from tax. So we are taking the Constitution and tax itself. Before we go, do I have any question on the Raisman Fiscal Commission? Any question? Any question?
Yes,
No,
I have a question.
Okay.
My question is the tax authority, starting with the tax authority, you made mention of media.
Sorry, can you speak louder?
Said sorry, when we are talking about the concerning the people that are needed in mention the government, mention the tax authority, mention the media. Sorry, I did not understand how the media is part of it.
It's like you are sounding low. Hello,
Maybe
Ernest, can you please speak louder, please?
Kabana, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. You when you were talking about the relevant personnel in tax payments, so we made mention of government, tax authority, and the rest. My question is, you also made mention of media. I want to have media is.
Initially, you were sounding loud, so I could hear you up to the stakeholders, tax authority, the government, and the likes, but the rest of your question, I barely
I
hear
think
you.
he said when you made mention of the state key holders. So
Mm-hmm.
how are the medias the state key holders? Because we can understand the part
Okay.
of government, taxpayer, tax authority, and tax consultants.
Oh,
So what
thank you.
about
Thank you. Chidinma, thank you. Yes, they're important. For instance, now, was it last week or during the week, the FRS came up with a public notice on the application of the Finance Act of 2022. Okay. Now, this was done internally. Okay. This was done internally and probably eventually uploaded on their portal. Okay. But when it was uploaded, there should be a means of communicating this to the public. So they invite the media, the journalists, for instance, they may have a radio station they use. Okay. So now you start seeing this via LinkedIn, you start seeing it on the WhatsApp, moving from one group to another. your friend, your colleague send it to you, you belong to a group that you felt, oh, let me put this thing here, you share it on that group, someone in the group also, so these, media is just like a medium of exchange of information. Okay, so you enlighten the people through the media. So just imagine how 40 years back or 30 years back, even 20 years back. So when things like this happen, probably you may not be aware until after 6 months, after 3 months. Okay, but now, if anything happened to the president in Abuja today, or as we speak now, before the next 5 minutes, it will be everywhere in the world. Is that not true?
Yes.
Okay. So another example of this is what happened during the NSAS, COVID-19, and the likes. So we could see live video of what is going on everywhere. And that's one of the importance of media, why they are key stakeholders in taxation. Is that clear to you now, Ernest?
Yes, it's clear. Said yes, it's clear.
Okay. So let's take the Constitution and facts. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Promulgation Act number 24 of 1999, with the commencement date of May 5, 1999, came into force on May 29, 1999. So Chapter 2, Section 24, Chapter 2, I mean Roman figure 2, okay? Section 24, under the duties of the citizens, item F provides for, sorry, so again, Chapter 2 in Roman figure, Section 24, which speaks about the duties of the citizens of the Federal Republic. So under this section of the Constitution, the item F, okay, provides that every citizen, okay, so it shall be the duty of every citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to declare his or her income. To declare what? To declare his or her income. And it is important this is declared honestly to appropriate and lawful agencies. So remember, citizens are of two types. We have the corporate citizen, and we have what? We have individual citizens. We have individual citizens. So every citizen, be it corporate or individual, must declare their property, their income honestly to the appropriate and lawful agencies. And you're also expected to pay your tax promptly. You're expected to pay your tax as at when due. As at what? As at when due. So the Constitution makes it a civic duty on the part of every Nigerian citizen to what? Declare their income. to declare their income and to pay tax on that income as appropriate. So why? Because it is now in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the basic law in Nigeria. Okay, which is the basic law in Nigeria. And we just said that chapter 2, section 24, which is about the duties of the citizens, items, item F of that section states that every citizen, whether you like it or not, you must what? You must declare your income honestly and pay your income. So this constitution is what is relevant. Then also section 1, subsection 3 provides that anything that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution shall be null and void and of no effect to the extent of its inconsistency. So meaning that someone cannot come and ask you to pay a tax saying that this is rice tax. Okay, and you ask them why, they say because you are consuming rice. The next question you ask them is, please, can you tell me, or can you refer me to the section of the Constitution that impose rice tax on us? Can you refer me to any act of the tax law that impose rice tax on us? Okay, so because you are aware of the tax law, you are informed. So nobody can come to you and tell you, we are paying this, we are paying that in form of tax. You need to know the rules of that tax. Are we together? Okay, so the strategies and operational activities of the tax authorities have to be in tune with the Constitution. So they cannot come to you and tell you that you must pay this, you must pay that. No, you need to reference me. You need to refer me to that section of the tax law that impose this tax on me. So otherwise they run the risk of being nullified by the courts, and the tax authority owes, the taxpayer, owes the taxpayer duty of what? Duty of, they owes the taxpayer duty of fairness. Also, they owe the taxpayer duty of responsibility as well as the government. So they are responsible to the government and also they are responsible to the taxpayer. Okay, so the tax authority, if they are doing anything that is outside the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, they run the risk of being nullified by the court. So a tax authority owes its existence to the taxing powers granted by the Constitution. So Nigeria has the federal system of government, and it is its Constitution which specifies the distribution of taxing powers between the three tiers of government, as well as the modalities for sharing revenues among the three tiers of government. Are we together? So also items 58 and 59 of part 1 of the Federal Republic of the exclusive legislature list. Okay, so items 58 and 59 of part 1 of the second schedule of this, of the second schedule of the exclusive legislative list exclusive legislative list, of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, impose or grants the power, to legislate and impose stamp duties, tax on income, tax on property, tax on profits, for both individuals and corporate bodies. So who are covered under the federal government. Okay, under the federal government. So in the same way, we have it in the concurrent legislative list as well. We have it in the concurrent legislative list as well. So meaning that not just the federal government, the state government also has the power to collect income tax, stamp duties, and then capital gains tax and capital gains tax from from people living within their jurisdiction. Okay, so within their jurisdiction. So that's that. But for the local government, they don't have these rights. Okay, so the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria does not vest the power into the local government to collect income tax, stamp duties, capital gains tax, value-added tax, among others. Okay, so while the federal taxing powers are stated on the exclusive legislative list, certain powers are residual and left to be limited or regulated solely by the State House of Assembly. By the State House of Assembly. By the State House of Assembly. So residual matters are neither on the exclusive legislative list, neither was it on what? On the concurrent legislative list. Okay, so Section 4, subsection 7 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, also states that the House of Assembly of a state shall have power to make laws for the peace, order, and good government of the state or any part thereof, with respect to the following. That is to say, any matter included in the exclusive legislative list set out in Part 1 of the second schedule to the Constitution, any matter included in the concurrent legislative list set out in the first column of Part 11 of the second schedule to this Constitution, to the extent prescribed in the second column opposite thereto, and any other matter with respect to which it is empowered to make laws in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. And that was why in Lagos State, we've seen the National Assembly, introducing various types of tax. We have the consumption tax, which is still in court now at the Supreme Court level. Then we have the land use charge, among others. We have different types of levy. You pay development levy. If you are working in Lagos, you cannot escape this. And if you want to build anything, any structure in Lagos, you will pay money. Okay, so you will pay money. Anything you want to do, you will pay money. So that's Lagos for you. So this position is also clear by reference to item D9. On the concurrent legislative list. Okay, on the concurrent legislative list. Then you can also make reference to the Schedule 2, Part 11 to the Constitution. So still under the Constitution and the taxing rights, Section 120 and Section 163A of the Constitution says that all revenues collected by the state government from personal income tax, capital gains tax, and the stamp duties should form part of the consolidated revenue fund of the state. So meaning that when you are preparing the consolidated revenue fund of the state, aside the allocation from the federal government, okay, you also had those income from personal income tax, capital gains tax, stamp duties, and the likes towards to the considered revenue fund. Because the local government does not have the power to collect this, so the state will include it in the money that will be distributed to the local governments. So also Section 162, subsection 1 states that the section exempts the payment of the following taxes collected by Federal Inland Revenue Service from being paid into the Federation accounts, but to be paid into the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the federal government. It should be paid to the what? It should be paid to the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the federal government. That is, these following set of people, okay, their income, the income and the tax income from them will not go into what? Will not go into the federation accounts for the purpose of distribution to the states and local governments. So it goes directly to who? To the federal consolidated revenue fund of the federal government. So any taxes being collected from the personnel of the armed forces, the Nigerian police, the ministry or department of government assigned the responsibilities for foreign affairs, and the resident of the Federal Capital Territory. Sorry, this was before the establishment of the Federal Capital Territory Internal Revenue Service agency. Okay, so then Section 173, subsection 4, and subsection 210, subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 stipulates that pensions paid in respect of past services rendered to the state government and federal government shall not be taxed. So those in public sector, be it state or federal governments, okay, any pensions paid to them in respect of past services, in respect of past services rendered to the state government and the federal government shall not be taxed. Are we together? So let's move to another subtopic. Before we start this, do you have any question for me? Any questions? Any question? Okay, seems there is no question. So sources of Nigerian tax laws. In Nigeria, the tax system is administered through statutes rather than the common law. So the sources of Nigerian tax laws are as follows. We have the case laws, which are the decision pronounced by the judge of, superior courts of records, namely High Court, Appeal Court, and the Supreme Court. So on principles of tax laws and their interpretations of the provisions of tax statutes are binding on the lower court, are binding on the lower court. So meaning that the decision, okay, reached, or the pronouncement, okay, of the Supreme Court of Nigeria on tax principles, tax laws, and its interpretations are binding on the lower court. I should not forget to also mention the tax appeal tribunal, which in most instances are the first level, at the first level of the judicial proceedings, of the judicial proceedings. Are we together? Okay. So then before we go to customary courts, so it is important to mention that the Nigerian tax laws originate, I said this earlier, originate from where? From the English tax laws. From the English tax laws. Okay, so an example of this could be buttressed in the case of Aderao's Timbers Trading Company Limited versus the Federal Inland Revenue Service Board of 1966. Okay, of 1966. So in this case, it was held that the decision of English courts could be invoked for interpreting Nigerian tax statutes where the expression and terms used are similar and substantially the same as those used in the English statutes. So what that means is maybe what happened was a default of a taxpayer. So since that has not happened in Nigeria before, okay, so you could borrow from what? You could borrow from the English law, in as much that it has similar, terms. Okay, it has what? Similar and substantial, terms or meaning as those used in the English statutes. So then for the customary laws, that's Tiwantiwa, if you understand Yoruba, sorry, that is, it is owned by us, what we do before the colonial era. So native laws and customs govern the taxation of incomes, goods and properties of persons or communities within an ethnic group. A good example of this is the Islamic law, which is the basis of the laws that are usually applicable in the northern parts of Nigeria. So that's the Muslim laws applicable in the northern part of Nigeria. Until today, you see them, it's only in the northern part of the country that you see the Sharia courts. Am I correct? The Sharia courts. Also referred to as what? The Islamic courts. Okay, so examples of taxes collected under the customary laws include: one, the zakat in the northern part of the country, payable on wealth, okay, so which has been in their possession for a full year, and this include properties, money, and the like. So the basis for determining the amount of tax payable and to whom is payable is provided by the Islamic law. Another one we have in Nigeria is Osusu Uku. So this is applicable in the eastern parts of the country. Okay, so then we have Ishakole, okay, payable in the Yoruba land, So, and this is usually paid to the titular heads of communities or the kings on the produce from farm land. on the produce from farm land. So then also we have the statute laws, which is similar to what we did earlier under the Constitution. So statutes are tax legislations passed by hearts of the National Assembly and that of the state assemblies, as well as the bylaws by the local government authorities in a democratic government, or decrees or edicts under a military government. All of these are what are statute laws. One, tax legislation passed by the hearts of the National Assembly and state assemblies, as well as the bylaws of the local government authorities in a democratic government, full stop, and decrees or edicts under the military government, under the military form of government. So these legislations confer powers on the taxing authorities to impose taxes on the citizens, that is, individual companies, trusts, settlements, and the like. So example of this, as discussed earlier, is Personal Income Tax Act. We have the Companies Income Tax Act. We have the Petroleum Profit Tax Act. We have the Value Added Tax Act. We have the Stamp Duty Act, among others. Okay, so another one we have is the Constitution of the Federal Republic. We've discussed this briefly, so I'm not emphasizing on that here. Then also we have budget and pronouncement of relevant ministries. Budget and pronouncement of relevant ministries. So such that we have NOTAP. We have NOTAP. NOTAP is the National Office of Technology. I've forgotten. National Office of Technology is the administration and something. Sorry, but you can do your research on it. So should I call it a levy? There's a levy that will be paid on management fees. Okay, so when you are using the service of is it non-residents, okay, in form of technology and the likes. Okay, something relating to that, Sha. So another one we have the NITDA is passed by the National Assembly. Okay, so we have various pronouncements of relevant ministries. Okay, so our CBN is under the Ministry of Finance. Okay, and we can say it regulates the banking industry. Okay, banking industry. We have the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Commerce, and the likes. So different ministries. Okay, so then we also have the opinions of tax experts and authors insofar as the courts take judicial notice of them. So one of the tax experts we have is Taiwo Ayodele of PwC. Then we have Yomi of Deloitte. I think we have one Yomi of KPMG too. I'm not sure. Okay, then we have a lot of them. Okay, so then circulars issued by and practices of the Inland Revenue. So we have, I just mentioned that last week the FRS issued a public notice. Okay, so we have circulars. In 2019 and 2020, there were a lot of circulars issued by the FRS just to caution the effect of COVID-19, and also to that was the first time the Finance Act was introduced to guide taxpayers on the application of the provisions of the Finance Act of 2019. Are we together? Okay, so then we have enabling acts. Enabling acts. So enabling acts are the acts, or they are statutes empowering a person or body of person to take certain action, especially to make regulations, rules, or orders. So for the FIRS, the Company Income Tax Act and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria allows for the creation of the FIRS. Okay, then the FIRS Establishment Act, okay, also empowers FIRS to collect, to make regulation rules or orders, circulars, or pronouncements. Okay, so and these are the enabling acts. Okay, the Personal Income Tax Act also enables the FIRS to collect tax, from certain individuals. So an enabling act is a piece of legislation by which a legislative body grants an entity which depends on it for authorization or legitimacy the power to take certain actions. So recently now, the economic was it something committee of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, okay, are proposing, okay, they are proposing the merger of FIRS, customs, and which other one? What's the third one, sir? FIRS, customs. Oh yeah, you guys, are you not up to date? And then NIMASA, okay? And NIMASA, I hope you know what NIMASA is. Hello? I hope you know what NIMASA is. Hello, are you guys there?
No, please, can you explain that, please?
Okay, so NIMASA is the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. So their office is in Apapa. Okay, so that's NIMASA. Then customs, you all know what customs is now. That's the Nigerian Customs Service. Then FIRS is the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Okay, so the economic advisor, to the president, Tinubu, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, are proposing the merger. In fact, they have recommended that there should be what? There should be a declaration of a state of emergency. A declaration of a state of emergency on revenue generation in the country. So in their proposal, they mentioned the merger of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Nigerian Customs Service, and Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency into one agency. Into what? Into one agency which will be referred to as the Nigerian Revenue Service. Nigerian Revenue Service, in order to enable an efficient collection of all direct, and indirect taxes. And that will be good. We will reduce cost of administration. So just imagine, FIRS is collecting some form of indirect tax, value-added tax, stamp duties, and the likes. The customs are collecting excise duties, custom duties, and also they monitor excise duties too. Okay, so this will drive, the economy reform. It will drive the economic reform agenda of the president, and this will help us, make us to make the government a sustainable government and bring about economic growth, and also bring about economic growth. Okay, so that's that. So if it is, adopted, at least we should save more money. We should save more money. So enabling acts often, establish government agencies to carry out specific government policies, in a modern nation. So the effects of enabling acts from different times and places vary widely. So that's all on the Constitution, the Fiscal Commission, the enabling acts, and then sources of Nigerian tax laws. Sources of Nigerian tax laws. So the next thing now is to discuss the national tax policy. The national tax policy. So before we move on, do you have any question? Any questions so far? Hello? Hello, guys. Any question?
No question from my end.
Okay. Ambrosia, good morning. You came late to class today. Hope there's no problem. Ambrosia, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I joined another class previously. Yeah.
So Shidima, do you have any question? So in the absence of any question, can I ask my question? So what do you understand by the term tax policy? What do you understand by the term tax policy? Hello? What do you understand by the word term tax policy?
Tax policy, they are the guidelines and principles established by government for the imposition and collection of taxes.
Okay. You tried. Okay. So the national tax policy was approved by the Federal Executive Council, okay, on February 1st, 2017, during the first term of the Barrow administration. And I think this woman was still there as the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, right? So the national tax policy is a document which sets broad parameters for taxation and then ancillary matters connected with taxation in Nigeria. Okay, so it provides the fundamental guidelines. It provides what? It provides the fundamental guidelines for the orderly development of Nigeria tax system. For the orderly development of the Nigerian tax system. So the national tax policy lists certain objectives which a tax system should achieve. It listed certain objectives which a good tax system, tax policy should achieve. So this policy is expected to achieve the following specific objectives. It is expected to achieve the following specific objectives. Among others, they include A, guide the operation and the review of tax system. It should guide the operation and the review of the tax system. And we can see this happening, okay? So like I mentioned, since 2019, we have been having, shall I call it an annual theme, okay, the Finance Act. Okay, so we have the Finance Act of 2019, Finance Act of 2019, 2020, 2021. Recently, we have that of 2022. So why are we having the Finance Act? So it's to guide the operation and the review of the tax system. Now, we all know that VAT has been increased from 5% to 7.5%. There was modification to the company income tax rates, company income tax rates. Now, we used to have 30% flat rates, but now we have 0%, 20%, and then 30%, depending on the level of your income. So there is a threshold. Okay, so that's that. Then the tax policy also provides the basis for future tax legislation and administration. It provides the basis for future tax legislation and administration. So, we are talking about the harmonization of the revenue agency, of the tax revenue for tax purpose. So now the federal government is taking in the right direction. If the recommendation is adopted, then we see the FIRS, we see the NIMASA, and we see the customs, merging. We see them merging together to form an agency. So the national tax policy forms the basis for future tax legislation and what? And then administration. So in terms of legislation, the Finance Act, it cannot be enacted, it cannot be assented to if it has not passed through the reading of the National Assembly. So the National Assembly must have read it, accept it, then pass it to the president for assent, for his assent. Okay, so that is signing. So also the tax policy serves as a basis or as a point of reference for all stakeholders on taxation. It serves as a point of reference for all stakeholders on taxation. So, and you agree with me that the FRS, since 2019, almost every year, have been introducing, have been granting taxpayer waivers of interest, and penalties, waivers of interest and penalties. In fact, there is VOAS, okay, and what's the other one? Is it vote? Okay, so this has to do with voluntary declaration of assets. Okay, voluntary declaration of assets. So this was introduced during the during the Buhari administration by the then FIRS chairman. That's what's his name? Sunday, this former Lagos State Internal Revenue Service chairman. Sunday something, I've forgotten. Okay, so that's a tax amnesty. Okay, it is what it is, a tax amnesty. So it is voluntary offshore assets and income. Voluntary offshore assets regularization scheme. Voluntary offshore assets regularization scheme. Voluntary assets regularization scheme. So this was introduced, via the presidential executive order on October 8, 2018. So it seeks to provide an incentive to taxpayers. Okay, it seeks to provide an incentive for taxpayers. So what kind of incentive? So this particularly is for those that are defaults. Okay, so those that have defaulted in paying their tax as at when due. So one, in respect of their foreign assets and foreign sourced income, and also in respect of their local assets and local source of income. So we have VAS and we also have VATs. Okay, so that's voluntary assets and income, voluntary assets and income declaration scheme, voluntary asset and income declaration scheme. Are we together? Okay, so that's for, so VAs has to do with within the country, then VAS has to do with offshore assets. Okay, so the duration of the scheme, I think, was for 12 months. Okay, so beginning on October 8th, 2018. So this is to take advantage of the scheme. Okay, so taxpayers are required to access the facility by paying just 2%. By paying what? By paying 2% facility access fee and making all necessary disclosures So another benefit of this is to bring all tax evaders, into the tax net of the country. Okay, so that's all on the objective. So let's look at the guiding principles of the Nigerian tax system. So all existing and future taxes should align with the following fundamental principles or features or attributes or characteristics. And you agree with me that the first and foremost is equity and fairness. Equity and fairness. So the Nigerian tax system should be fair and equitably devoid of discrimination. So under the principle of equity, so we have the vertical equity and we have the horizontal equity. So for vertical, we say the more income you earn, the more tax you pay. A good example of this is the income tax. Income tax. So the more income you earn, the more tax you pay, be it company or individual. But for horizontal, okay, so it has a flat rate. So it depends on the category of it doesn't depend on the category, or maybe the higher your income, the higher tax you pay. No. So it's on indirect. A good example is indirect tax. So every taxpayer in the country pays the same rate. Pays what? Pays the same rate. So, and basically these are levied on consumption. Okay, so a good example is value-added tax. Okay, so I pay 7.5%, you pay 7.5%. Okay, Dangote pays 7.5%. So if Bill Gates is a citizen of Nigeria, or if he has anything to do in Nigeria, he earns income from Nigeria, he pays 7.5%. Okay, he pays what? He pays 7.5%. So, but for the vertical, the more income you earn, the more money, the more tax you pay. And the two are equity, they are fair. They are fair to us, because if I'm earning 100,000 naira, let me pay tax on that 100,000 naira. And if I'm earning 1 million naira, definitely my tax should be more than the person earning 100,000 naira. We should not pay the same rates. Do you understand? So that's that. Then we have simplicity, certainty, and clarity. Tax laws and administration processes should be simple, clear, and easy to understand. There should be low compliance costs. There should be low cost of administration. The cost of compliance that's the saying. The cost of compliance is usually lower than the cost of non-compliance. So if I'm complying, then let me be encouraged to comply. Let me be encouraged to comply. So the cost of compliance to taxpayers should be kept at the barest minimum. Okay, so then there should be low cost of administration. I mentioned this. So we want to see the efficiency, cost effective, in line with the international best practices in our Nigerian tax system. There should be flexibility. So the way and manner of which tax should be paid should be flexible, should be convenient for all. And thank God, now for your FIRS, LIRS, I know for Lagos State and some other states, Internal Revenue Service, you can pay your tax online at your comfort zone, without going to the bank and the likes. You can do your filing anywhere at any time. Okay, so, but that at any time, mind the due date for filing for each of those tasks. Then sustainability. So the tax system should promote sustainable revenue. It should promote economic growth and then economic development. So there should be a synergy between tax policies and other economic policies of government and other economic policies of government. So let me add this. Okay, so don't forget, I just mentioned that taxation should be seen as what? As a tool, should be seen as a tool for economic what? For economic management. Taxation should be seen as a tool for economic management and development, economic management and development, meaning the tax system should support sustainable growth and development at all times. Okay, so one of the goals that tax should achieve is what? Is wealth creation, is wealth creation. So when we are referring to wealth creation, what we mean is that, so collect money from the poor, okay? Collect money from the poor, from the rich, okay? Then redistribute to the poor. So when government collect money from Dangote and the likes, Tony Lumelu and the likes, okay? So they use those money to, construct road. They use those money to build schools. They use those money to build hospitals, among others. So wealth creation and what? And employment. So the more school they create, the more teachers they employ. The more hospitals we have, the more what? The more doctors, nurses, or medical practitioners they employ. So the more roads they construct, the more engineers they employ. The more estates, housing estates they build, the more civil engineer they employ, among others. And there will be work for tax practitioners, there will be work for accountants too. Okay, because the accountants will, assist in all these institutions, both public and private organizations. Then the tax practitioners, will assist in ensuring they pay what is due to them. They help them plan their taxes and the likes. Okay, so then also taxation and what? And then diversification. So we should not just rely on revenue from oil. Okay, so there should be concerted effort to attract investment in all sectors of the economy. So let's even divert from oil revenue generation. Let's look into other sectors. Okay, so let's look into other sectors. So we should promote investment in specific sectors. Then we have focus on indirect taxation. As we can see, VAT rate has increased from 5% to 7.5%. Focus on what? Focus on indirect taxation. Sometimes in 2022, okay, or 2021, the government introduced sugar tax on consumption of carbonated drinks. So number 4, convergence of tax rates. Okay, so the rates should be progressive, and evidence of this is seen in the Finance Act of 2019, where the company's income tax rates was amended to look like a progressive tax rate. Okay, so we have a threshold cap at 25 million naira. So any companies with a revenue threshold of 25 million naira and below, their tax rate is 0%. Then any companies with revenue threshold of between 25 million naira and 100 million naira, their tax rate is at 20%. And any company that their revenue is above 100 million naira, their tax rate is at 30%. So it looks like a progressive tax rate. So that's what we mean by that's what we meant by convergence of tax rates. And you could see again, another example is that of the education tax rate. Education tax rate. So before it used to be at 2%. The Finance Act of 2021 increased it to 2.5%, and the Finance Act of 2022 has also increased it to 3%. We don't know, maybe they will increase it again next year. Okay, so, and there should be special arrangements and other incentives. There should be what? Special arrangements and other incentives. So taxation should be used as what? As a special arrangement and other incentives. So we have the pioneer legislative. Then we also have, I mentioned earlier that the FIRS, over the years, since 2020, they have been introducing various tax waivers, okay, waivers of interest and penalties, okay. So then taxation should also create a competitive edge. Creating what? Creating a competitive edge. Creating what? So there should be reduction in the number of taxes. This is yet to be done. We are yet to hear I've not heard that news that, okay, this tax has been abolished. Okay, taxpayers should no longer pay this tax. Then there should be avoidance of multiple taxation. So maybe when they merge the FIRS, the MASA, and the customs together, then we should see harmonization in some of these tasks, we pay. So we are yet to see that. So then we have international and regional treaties. Okay, so that's that. I hope you are with your writing materials and you've put all of this down. Okay, so we have key stakeholders. What are the responsibilities of these key stakeholders? So NS was asking the other time, why media? I know that of the government. I understand that taxpayers are also, key stakeholders. Yes, the revenue agencies are part of it. Tax professionals, they are part of it, but why the media? Okay, so then we know why the media are very important. So let's start from the government. So all arms of government, be it ministries, ministerial departments, agencies, we call them the MDAs. Okay, so they are to implement and regularly review tax policies and laws. So they must ensure that all contractors they are engaging, they should ensure that they pay tax. They request for their evidence of tax payments. Okay, tax clearance. They should form part of their request for proposal, the documents required for their request for proposal. So they should provide information on all revenue collected on a quarterly basis. Some of these MDAs, they are agency of the FIRS. Okay, so they collect taxes on behalf of the FIRS. So they should what? They should ensure they remit all collections to the FIRS or the CBN as may be required. So they should also ensure adequate funding, ensure a reasonable transition period of between 3 and 6 months before implementation of a new tax. So then for the taxpayer, one of your responsibility is your civic obligations. Okay, so relevant information for the discharge of tax obligations. So we are, as a taxpayer, we are entitled to, enlightenment on any tax laws. So we should receive prompt, cautious, and professional assistance in dealing with tax reasonably. Then there should be a fair and impartial appeal. So that's why all the tax laws give rooms, for taxpayers to, where they are aggrieved, or of the tax assessments, okay, from the tax authority. So you can go to the tax appeal tribunal. From there, if you are not satisfied, you go to the High Court. From the High Court to the Court of Appeal, then finally to the Supreme Court. Okay, but remember, the decision of the Supreme Court is final. Okay, so there should be, we are entitled to fair hearing. So then we should be able to represent ourselves or by appointing an agent, provided that the person is acting for a financial reward. Then the revenue agencies, they are to treat us as customer. Okay, so treat taxpayer as what? As customer, because without us, they cannot be in, they will not be in business. So if all taxpayers should cease paying their tax today, then the FRS will collapse. Okay, the FRS will collapse because that's the purpose government have created them for. And if the purpose of existence is no longer there, then they are dead. So I'm sorry, I don't mean the people there, I mean the organization itself. So because we fund them, okay, so then there should be timely audit and investigation because we practice self-assessment tax system in Nigeria. Okay, so there should be timely review of individual assessments, okay, of the self-assessment, then investigation where possible, where there's an indication that taxpayer has evaded tax. Then also they should undertake tax awareness and tax education. Okay, so to the people both in the rural area, in the urban and rural area, in villages, as the case may be. Then establish a robust process to prevent, dictate and punish corrupt tax practice. Then to the professional bodies, tax practitioners, consultants, and agents, you should always tell your clients the right thing. Always encourage them to abide by the tax law. So they should act in accordance with professional code of conduct and ethics. So remember your professional, principle of independence. You must be independent of your clients. Okay. Remember the principle of objectivity. Remember your principle of confidentiality. So don't say because you have come into contact with your clients, you have all the information at hand, then you should now misuse those information. Okay, so then professionals should also promote effective tax compliance and do not encourage your clients to evade tax. Do not encourage your clients to avoid tax. Okay, so and corrupt practice should not be encouraged as well. Then to the media, they should promote tax education and awareness, articulate, protect, and advance taxpayers' rights, advance accountability and transparency, then also ensure accurate, objective, and balanced reporting in accordance with their own professional code of conduct and ethics. Are we together? So that's that for the key stakeholders. Then we have the administration of the mandate of the 3 tiers of government. So basically, by now we understand that it cuts across the 3 tiers of government, and tax policies documents establishes clear guidelines on circular, or let me say crucial tax administration issues. So one of the things in the context of the Nigerian tax policy is that tax authorities at all levels shall administer their mandates. Okay, so one of the things they should do is registration of taxable persons. So that's the starting point. So if you are not registered, if you are not duly registered as a taxpayer, how do you pay tax? Who do you pay your tax to? Do you understand? So, and the government and the revenue agency has a lot of things to do in this aspect, because a lot of people are out there that are not even aware of tax. They don't pay tax because they see it as a burden. Okay, so then they should ensure compliance, tax compliance. Okay, so thank God I've developed a simple and convenient means of paying tax. Okay, so using the tax promise at the FRS level, and then using the e-tax at the LRS level in some states. So it makes it convenient and simple, for taxpayer to be compliant. So also they should develop frameworks for tax amnesty in order to expand the tax net. Yes, a good example of this is the VOAS and VAT I discussed with you the other time. So a lot of states are also doing that. There should be focus on taxpayer services and the likes. Then efficiency of administration is also important. Efficiency of administration is also important. So payment processing and collection, record keeping, exchange of information, enforcement of tax laws, revenue autonomy, ease of paying tax, and the likes. And lastly, there should be what? There should be technology and tax intelligence, technology and tax intelligence. So thank God again, they deployed the tax promise, okay? So, to aid aspect of tax administration and tax collection. So then the integrity and regular update of the database. So recently, ever since the adoption or the implementation of the tax promise, it has undergone, a lot of updates, and the likes. So, and it's now getting robust. So you can now file your VAT input and the likes in foreign currency and the likes. Okay. So then there should be a workable and secure structure for intelligence and then information gathering. Intelligence and information gathering. And then finally, we have what? We have dispute resolution. We have dispute resolution. So, and I said it earlier, if it's asked when a taxpayer is aggrieved or the FIRS has, a concern, so it has to start with the tax appeal tribunal. Tax appeal tribunal, then through to the High Court, then we have the Court of Appeal, and finally to the Supreme Court. Okay, so in the event of any disputes, the tax authority and relevant stakeholders shall leverage on all amicable means of dispute resolution, including arbitration. Okay, and only resort to judicial determination as the last resort. So that's why in some cases you see taxpayer and tax authorities settling out of court. A good case is that of MTN and then I was MTN or multi-choice and the FIRS. So eventually they settled out of court. Are we together? Okay, so that's all for today's class. Okay, so thank you guys for being with me since the start of the class. So in this chapter, we've discussed the sources of tax laws in Nigeria, the objectives, the stakeholders, the Nigerian tax system, the constitution, and the likes. So we mentioned that the legal framework of taxation is a codified system of order that describes the legal implications of taxation. And also, we just discussed the national tax policy, which was approved by the Federal Executive Council on February 1st, 2017. And this is a document which sets broad parameters for taxation and ancillary matters connected with taxation in Nigeria. Okay, so I have these 5 assignments for you guys. Do take your time to practice them as they get you prepared for your coming exams. Okay, so that's the end of this class. Do you have any question? Any question, please? It's like your FR has started, your financial accounting class has started. Any question?
No question.
No question for now.
For now.
Okay. So thank you guys for joining me in this class. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you
So,
too.
and hopefully before next week, I hope that I would have gone through the video lecture and the class notes. So I look forward to seeing you in class the next 7 days. Okay, do enjoy the rest of the weekend. Bye.
Bye.